Your host, Logan, here. We got a big slate going on today. We are a week behind in the NFL, so we are going to really skim over last week. We're not really going to go that in depth to it, but we will talk about last week. We will talk about the dominance performance last night from the Buffalo Bills. And also, not only that, we will talk about this upcoming Sunday in the NFL. We got a big slate. We will also talk about not only that, we got the World Cup going on, a lot of exciting stuff going on over there in Qatar for the World Cup. U.S. advances, a bunch to talk about there, a lot of upsets, a lot of teams going home that a lot of people didn't expect to go home at this point in the tournament, and it's very, very exciting, even for someone like me who's not a huge soccer fan. And yes, I am calling it soccer because we tied. We got the draw against England. That's close enough for a win for me. We were dominant in that performance, so I am calling it soccer forever now. But we will talk about that later. I also want to talk about UFC. I didn't really get to talk about that whole Izzy fight that happened there a couple weeks ago. But not only that, the year's end of 2022 has a couple exciting fights to look out for. Maybe not watch the whole event, but maybe, they will produce some highlights, some fun highlights, and some fight of the year candidates for us later to end the year off with a bang for those fights. But starting off with the NFL, we are in a very weird spot right now. We are going into, I believe, week 13, I want to say. If I remember correctly, yes. Last night was the first game of week 13. Last night was a very interesting game. Well, not really interesting. It was an expected game, in my opinion, with the Bills. Well, yes, the score says one thing, but the score's a lot closer for the Patriots than the performance actually was for them. A 24-10 win for the Bills last night. Really a dominant, like I said, a dominant performance for them, for the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen played well. Stephon Diggs did Stephon Diggs things. Very, very dominant performance out of their defense. The Patriots look to be in a spot right now where, I don't know, are you going to argue that even though they were right there in the playoff hunt and they're not that far out of it at 6-6, right out of a wild card spot, but you saw signs out of Bill Belichick and the coaching last night. They really started to wave the white flag at the end of that game last night. So to see how the future of this Patriots team goes for the rest of the season is interesting. I feel like their play, the locker room, honestly, is slightly different with Mac than it was with Zappy, going back to that whole conversation earlier this year with Bailey Zappy and what's going on there. So maybe that is a huge locker room thing that we have to think about as the Patriots move forward, and they're going to have to think about it. Is yes, Mac is a talent and he's very good, but with what happened with Bailey Zappy earlier this year, is that going to continue? But without that, the Bills move to 9-3, second in the AFC overall, right behind the Chiefs, get a big win. Josh Allen just continues to improve his MVP case for this year and see what's going to happen there with the Bills. They really look like a team that's very well put together. A lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball as the season closes. Hopefully they could get some of those pieces back in the playoffs and stuff like that, and they could really make noise and hopefully beat the Chiefs, which is the last step that they haven't been able to do yet in the playoffs. But with that, last night was last night. Moving back to week 12 now, I do want to talk about this, back to those Thanksgiving games, talk about that, and then we'll go into fully what's going to come on Sunday. So starting off with the Giants, I do want to talk about them because they finally got back in action after a bye week, played the Cowboys in a game that I thought was going to be a lot better for the Giants and a lot closer for the Giants. Even though, yes, they only lost by one score, The Cowboys defense completely dominated this game. They held Saquon Barkley to only 39 yards, and he was just slow and he couldn't get going. And the Giants offense, which isn't an exciting offense necessarily this year at all, didn't really do anything. And their one weapon in Saquon Barkley that they need to get going. The Cowboys front seven did a very, very good job. Micah Parsons did a very good job at stopping him. And no momentum was really on the Giants side this whole game. It felt all Cowboys, all four quarters. Dak did throw 2 interceptions, so there were a couple moments where it was like, could the Giants maybe get back into this and score a touchdown? But the Cowboys defense just consistently proved too much for them in this game on Thanksgiving. Zeke had 92 yards. He came up big, which is it's been a slow season for him, so that's a good step for him. Especially splitting carries now with Tony Pollard. They seem to be a very, very deadly two-headed monster. So how that is going to play out for them in the playoffs and how this season goes, it's a brand of football that will win games and wins games in cold weather and throughout the playoffs, and their defense as well. So the Cowboys are a team that is arguably built for a run here in the playoffs and can definitely make some noise, even though they might not be the winner of their division. The Giants, on the other hand, though, they've just lost 2 straight. So you're sitting here now as the Giants, and I feel like you're in a really interesting spot because you've just dropped 1 at home to the Lions. You now drop 1 on the road that you felt like you kind of needed against Dallas. To drop now, you and Dallas have been going back and forth with that wild card spot. You're not out of the playoffs if you're the Giants, but you have a division game this week in the Commanders. You don't have the easiest schedule coming up now here for the New York Giants. So the way the end of this season might turn out for them could be scary and could be a complete turnaround of everything good they've done so far this year. And it really scares me and worries me to say that because I don't want to say that about the Giants. I like Dable. I like the story. I like the brand of football they've been playing. But it seems like if you stop Saquon Barkley, you stop the whole team, and teams are starting to really figure that out now. And it worries me going forward. Like I said, they have a big game at home this week against Washington, who just started squeezing into the playoff picture, has put a lot of wins together recently. I'll talk more about them later. But what's coming up for the Giants is hard. It's difficult, and they need to squeeze out at least 2, maybe even 3 wins if they really want to get into the playoffs with these last, 5-6 games coming up. Or, yeah, 5, like with these last, 5 games coming up. Talking about the next New York team now, as we always do with the first 2, we will talk about the Jets now. And there's a lot to talk about with this Jets team, especially because we didn't talk last week. So the Jets, not last week, not against the Bears, which is the game I'm talking about now. The week before, the previous week, 2 weeks ago, they had a bad loss to New England or I believe it was in New England, off that punt return. And a very, very, very heartbreaking loss. And in that loss, your team only puts up 3 points, and your starting quarterback, the future of your team, someone you drafted at number 3 overall, if I remember correctly, in Zach Wilson, comes to the podium and is asked what, in my opinion, was a softball of a question. Now, obviously, I understand. Yes, it's a post-game press conference. Emotions are high. So I do take things with a grain of salt when he said that. But I feel like it was an easy question to answer when you only put up 3 points and you technically don't score as an offense. The only person who scores is your special teams, puts up a field goal. So you only put up 3 points as a team. And you're asked, hey, did the offense disappoint the defense today? When the defense held their offense to also only 3 points. Technically, the Patriots offense also did not score in that game, with it being a field goal scored by the kicker, which is your special teams, and then a punt return, which is another special teams touchdown. So you could argue that the Jets defense couldn't have played any better in that game 2 weeks ago against the Patriots. Zach Wilson is then asked the question, hey, Did you disappoint your defense? And the obvious answer is yes. As a leader, you have to answer yes. Whether you actually did or not, Zach, whether you played the greatest game of your life, you say yes, we disappointed them. Yes, we didn't put up any points. We were disappointing as an offense today. That's what you say. You leave it there. It's been said over and over and over again. You're taught this as an NFL quarterback, I thought. So the fact that he didn't say that and he just went, no, we didn't, was very, very interesting. So now they come out with what seemed to be a meaningless game for the Jets. Now has all this hype around it with now Zach Wilson getting sat. Mike White, who last year did a lot of good things, comes and starts for them and continues to do so. And with the way that the Jets offense played this past Sunday, I don't know if Zach Wilson will. I know I'm really buying into the hype, but you could argue that Zach Wilson will never play for the New York Jets again. You really can. And obviously, yes, Zach Wilson has a lot of talent. He can move. He can get out of the pocket and move. He can make plays. I've seen him make plays that are unreal. I have seen him make some very, very, very unreal plays. But with the lack of leadership that seems to prove, and then Mike White comes out, apparently the locker room is chanting his name. And what I find very interesting about that is Zach Wilson in the room. Because how do you now feel if you're Zach Wilson? You just got benched for something you said in a press conference and leadership issues. And then Mike White comes out and does this, and the team is chanting his name in the locker room. Like, as Zach Wilson, you're sitting there probably in the corner like, God damn, like, no way. There's no way that just happened. But that is happening for the New York Jets. Now, they did play a Bears team that was out, that had Justin Fields out with a shoulder injury. So that definitely helped the Jets defense with Trevor Siemian. Trevor Siemian's not a starting quarterback in this league. He didn't play very well. Nothing was very exciting about the Bears side of this game, so there's not much to talk about. Luckily, they get Justin Fields back this week against the Packers, so that now makes that Packers game somewhat of an exciting game to watch, in my opinion. Definitely keep your eyes on that. But with the Jets, Mike White having 3 touchdowns and having over 300 yards is just that offense. I was watching the game, was moving like nothing else. And with Breece Hall now injured. Oh, by the way, sorry, I almost skipped over the fact that Garrett Wilson seems to be an absolute stud of a pick. Sauce Gardner seems to be a stud of a pick. The Jets draft this year seems to be full of absolute studs, and it was a great job by them. Garrett Wilson had 95 yards and 2 touchdowns himself, which is an insanely great game. And then yes, the Jets backfield is what intrigues me the most for the rest of the season, because you had Breece Hall, who seems to be a stud and will be a stud in the future when he comes back from that tragic ACL tear he had earlier this year. And then you trade for James Robinson, who clearly has played well for the Jets and played well in Jacksonville, but he hasn't gotten that many carries and didn't this week. You had Zenovian Knight for the Jets get a majority of their carries, and he didn't play bad. He had 70 yards himself. So what's going to happen with this Jets backfield with now Michael Carter and James Robinson and now this Zenovian White, who I've never heard of until this week, comes up, and really see what they also have. Ty Johnson got a couple carries, got himself a rushing touchdown, who's another new name for this Jets backfield. So they really have a rotation going back there without Breece Hall. I assume they're trying to see who they're going to keep for the future when their main back is Breece Hall, who is going to be the person to take the load off of him. And it seems they've yet to figure that out. And it seems they have a couple players who really can do it and have the capability to do so. Staying on the East Coast, though, with a team that has been really hot, because the Jets finally got a win that they needed, so they end that little losing streak. But we come back now to the NFC East, to a team that has won 6 of their last 7 in the Washington Commanders. They've won 6 of their last 7. Their only loss in their last 7 games was against Minnesota. I believe that game was 2 weeks ago, if not maybe 3, where they lost 20-17 against a Minnesota team who was proven to be a very, very good team. So the Commanders are not only playing teams, they're playing teams well. They're beating good teams. They beat the Eagles on this stretch. So they're playing good teams, and they're really, really, their defense is playing really, really well. They finally got Chase Young back, I believe. And their offense is possessing the ball, wasting a lot of clock, having a lot of time of possession. You're seeing players like Brian Robinson really, really become studs. He had a buck, a buck and 5 cents. That was a weird analogy. It didn't work when I looked at how many yards he actually had. Had 105 yards, though, on 18 carries. He played well. Heineke has been playing like an absolute certified dog. Did not get the award this week. Don't mistake what I'm saying right there. But he has been playing like a dog. He had 2 touchdowns. Did throw an interception. He had 2 touchdowns, possesses the ball. They have Terry McLaurin, who also is an absolute dog. So they've been putting together a lot of wins. They played a Falcons team who is could make the playoffs possibly in this NFC South. It's very, 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 very bad coming from a Saints fan. So trust me, it's hard having to watch one of those teams every week. The Saints are not good, but the Falcons are interesting because they seem to be putting together wins. Their defense seems to be holding a lot of offenses and really confusing a lot of offensive. They have Mariota, who's not playing terrible, who's not really turning the ball over that much, but he did throw an interception this week. Cordero Patterson's still a stud. He's going to still have a bunch of yards all purpose and be everywhere. So he did his thing. They have a bunch of new running backs that really have come onto the scene this year. So the Falcons are just a really, really, really interesting team to me this year. And I don't know. Obviously, they're not going to win anything. They're not going to go on a run in the playoffs or anything like that. Don't mistake me there. But they are definitely a team that might have a bunch of young pieces that can definitely do something. They had again, Cordell Patterson, Tyler Algier, Mariota. Is Mariota the quarterback of the future is the real question with them? Probably not. They do have Ritter on the back end, who they drafted this year, but how good is he gonna be? We have no clue. Maybe if you get booted out of the playoffs, you could test that out if you're the Falcons. But the Falcons are a really interesting team and have really been upsetting a lot of teams. Maybe can make some noise, maybe win a game in the playoffs, surprisingly, but I don't think we'll do anything further than that. Now, on to my game of the week, the Ravens-Jaguars game. How interesting was this? The Jaguars get an insanely entertaining W against the Baltimore Ravens. And now this is where I will give out my certified Dog of the Week award to my man, Trevor Lawrence, quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. 321 yards, 3 touchdowns, and an absolute certified dog. After that, if you guys watched the end of that game, the way he drove downfield with 2 minutes left was an absolute piece of beauty and exactly what the Jacksonville Jaguars have been waiting to see out of Trevor Lawrence for 2 whole seasons. Since they drafted him number 1 overall out of Clemson, they've been waiting to see the moment where it's like, this is T-Law. This was the kid that until the NFL did not lose a single game, a single regular season game. He lost his first regular season game of his life the first year he was drafted. Clearly has talent, and he showed it in that 2-minute drive. Unreal against the Ravens defense that has been has not been well this year. Sorry, I can't say the word. But has not been as good as they usually are. Obviously, Lamar did his thing. He had 250 yards through the air, had 89 yards on the ground. Lamar did his thing, but the Jaguars defense played very well. They caused 2 fumbles, one of which was very costly for the Ravens at the end of the game. And the Jaguars are obviously not going to do anything this year, like I was saying about the Falcons before. But unlike the Falcons, they clearly have a lot of pieces that can can make some noise in the future. A lot of young wide receivers. Zay Jones had 11 receptions and 145 yards, which is an ridiculous game. JaMychal Hastings out of the backfield had a great game, 67 receiving yards, 27 yards on the ground, and a receiving touchdown. And it was just a really, really, really good performance for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And not a great performance, or not a bad performance for the Ravens, but some really bad mistakes there for the Ravens. But I do want to give a shout out on the Ravens to Deshaun Jackson. I do just want to mention him having 2 receptions, 74 yards, and still making an impact on an NFL team at 36 years old. Deshaun Jackson has been with his speed, how fast he can still run at his age. He's going to be a big piece for the Ravens coming up in the playoffs, and it'll be very interesting. So it's just something to note. Deshaun Jackson on this Ravens team will definitely make some big plays going forward. The next game about last week, that this one I don't really want to talk about, but I will talk about, not because of the Saints, but I will talk about it because of the 49ers. The 49ers completely dominate the Saints and beat them 13-0 last Sunday. And just the Saints, I don't have a lot to say about them as a Saints fan. I mean, I could go on a whole 20-30 minute rant and go on it for the whole show if I really wanted to, but I don't, because it'll just get me mad, more and more mad. The Saints team is not good this year. Andy Dalton's not good. Do you switch to Jameis Winston, who's finally healthy? I don't know. Alvin Kamara got completely stopped by an all-time Niners defense. They have a weapon in Chris Olave, who's good for the future, especially with everything going on with Mike Thomas, who's injured again, out for the year again. Everything with the Saints is just, they're not in a good spot. But on the other hand, the 49ers are exactly where they want to be and playing exactly how they need to be playing. Their defense is easily the best in the league, arguably one of the best of all time. Just their secondary has been playing absolute lockdown. Players like, what's his name on the end? Nick Bosa, players like Nick Bosa and that front seven, Fred Warner for the 49ers, are just flying all over the place. And then they have unreal weapons like CMC on offense, who honestly had a bad game against the Saints. Christian McCaffrey did not have the greatest game against New Orleans, but he is a weapon for the future for this 49ers team that is going to be really, really, really dangerous. Jimmy Garoppolo is going to do what you need him to do. Ayuk or Deebo Samuel is guaranteed to go off every week. They've been trading on and off for who's leading the team in receiving yards each week. This week it was Ayuk with 65. This 49ers team is holding teams to not a lot of points, and they don't need to score a lot, but they can if they need to. They're very dangerous. They seem to be the clear front runners in the NFC. They play the Dolphins this week, and that'll be a very interesting game for them, playing a really good AFC opponent. We'll see how that really turns out and how they really, now with CMC and their whole team, for the most part, healthy for the first time in a while with the 49ers. We'll see them against a really, really good opponent this week in Miami. Rams Chiefs, this one I'm kind of going to gloss over fast because it was just the Rams with no Matt Stafford have gotten even worse than they were with Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford cleared the concussion protocol, will not play again this week. They got Perkins back there, quarterback, who seems to be mobile, which is very interesting. And they have some interesting plays drawn up for him. But what's been going on with the Rams this year seems to be a very, very, very steep drop off, a hard plateau, and they're not in a good spot. Probably gonna miss the playoffs. I think they are still right outside the bubble at 4-6. I believe they are sitting at, if I remember correctly. So, but they're just not in a good spot. And the Chiefs are the Chiefs and will keep being the Chiefs. It seems that we are entering an era of Chiefs dynasty. They have, I believe it is a Super Bowl, if not two. They have a Super Bowl over the past 3 years, made two. The only team they lost to was Tom Brady. They seem to be the best team in the league. With the Bills, it seems to be only them, but that's it. That's really it. Now, talking about the last game of last week, as my friend blows up my phone about it, I will talk about the Packers-Eagles game. This one was really interesting. Aaron Rodgers goes out in the second half with a shoulder injury. He has said multiple times that he plans to play this week. Jordan Love comes in, and for the first time that I've seen Jordan Love play, doesn't play bad. Now, I feel that the way the energy of the game was going, the minute Aaron Rodgers walked off the field, the Eagles had won that game. I didn't think Jordan Love was going to come out and play as well as he did. I don't think anybody did, but I think the Packers' energy definitely shifted when Jordan Love came onto the field, and it's definitely very different. Now, he did play well, and you put yourself in a weird spot now as the Packers. Actually, the media is putting the Packers in a weird spot now because you talk about Jordan Love like all this. Aaron has not been having the greatest year of Aaron Rodgers' career. But now I also want to put that in perspective. I say the greatest year of Aaron Rodgers' career. Aaron Rodgers is getting older. There is a lot going on there. But Aaron Rodgers at this season, I feel is still better than most, probably 90% of quarterbacks in the league today. So I don't know if you can necessarily just dump Rodgers by the wayside. I remember seeing a rumor that he was going to get traded. Apparently, he was going to be on the Jets all of a sudden, and all of this. And I don't think you could do that as the Packers. I think you signed a 3-year deal. I think you commit to Aaron Rodgers for 3 years, and you leave that there. Now, where you're in more of an interesting spot as the Packers front offense is what you do with Jordan Love. Now, Jordan Love, I believe his contract is up this year. He has kind of proven now that he kind of has some talent and didn't play terrible against a very, very good Eagles defense. I feel if you're the Packers and you get to week 17, week 18, and you're sitting there and you're not in the playoffs, you're not going to make the playoffs, you play Jordan Love and you see how the contract will work out. You either sign the 5th-year option and or you extend him for I don't know, 4 years. Give him 1 year after Aaron's done. You know what I'm saying? You do something like that maybe with Jordan Love if he can come out and prove that he's a future starter. Because I don't know, like I said, if you can necessarily push Rodgers to the wayside just yet. The rest of this Packers team still has a lot more to work on and a lot more to worry about than just their quarterback and what that's going to do for the future. They still don't have a weapon for him to throw to. Christian Watson has been kind of proving that he's getting more comfortable in the league. He's playing like an absolute dog. He's had a good couple weeks. But outside of that one weapon, Romeo Doubs had a good couple weeks earlier this year, but he's fell off heavily. He's been injured for a couple weeks on and off. So what's going to go on with the Packers' weapons, I feel like is more important right now than necessarily the quarterback. When you have someone like Aaron Rodgers, who even at a bad Aaron Rodgers is better than most quarterbacks. Coming from someone who doesn't have a quarterback, I watch Andy Dalton every week. I watch Andy Dalton play quarterback every week, and this is no offense to Andy Dalton, but I would take Aaron Rodgers head over heels week after week over Andy Dalton. I think anyone would. And I think there are only a handful of quarterbacks you can say that you wouldn't take Aaron Rodgers over, and that alone makes me think the Packers are worrying about quarterback way too early. Let Aaron be Aaron. Let him play. You just re-sign him to an extension for a reason and let that continue. Now, the team on the other side of the field, the Eagles, they improved to 10-1, easily the best team in the league right now. Jalen Hurts has just, again, like I said with Josh Allen, is proving his talent, his MVP candidacy just week after week is proving more and more why he should win that MVP. He had 153 yards through the air, 157 on the ground, had 2 passing touchdowns. Just an absolute tearing apart of that Packers defense that really seems to have struggled so far this year against teams that are good on the ground. Because not only did Jalen Hurts have a $157, you have Miles Sanders having a $143 on the ground. He had 2 touchdowns on 21 carries. So just the Packers just got absolutely stomped on and outmanned, if I do say so myself, out front and manhandled up front. And it was just the Eagles just pounded the ball down their throat and got a really good win. Improved to 10-1, which now at where they're at, do I know that they aren't? Obviously, they're the best team by record in the NFC, but are they the best team in the NFC is the question. Are they better than the 49ers? I don't know. And what's going to go on there, and if they meet in the NFC Championship, it'll be interesting. What's going to happen to this very young Eagles team in the playoffs is going to be very interesting. They're going to be a very interesting team to watch, and we'll definitely watch them going forward. Now, moving on to Week 13. Now, I'm just going to talk about Week 13, their matchups, what I think is going to happen this week, and then we're going to move on to some other sports here today. Not as much football-based today's show, but we'll start here in New York. We're going to start with both New York teams. The Commanders come in here to MetLife Stadium, come to play the New York Football Giants, who have just lost 2 straight, are trying not to make this an official losing streak with a 3rd straight, and it would be back-to-back losses at home, and then a bad loss to the Cowboys, and then back-to-back division losses also, you lost to the Lions at home, and then you lose back-to-back division games. You haven't lost at home the past 2 times you've been there. It'll be very interesting and a very good game. Commanders' defense has been playing very well. Giants' offense has started to slow down, so it seems to be a game for the Commanders to win. But I really want to say that Dable is going to get this Giants team right this week. At home, I think MetLife is going to be packed. I think Giants fans are going to be there, and I think they're gonna make a difference and make an impact. At home, I'm definitely going to take the Giants in this one. I'm not doing the spreads this week, but I'm just doing straight up who I think is going to outright win the game. I'm going to take the Giants at home in this game. Now, the New York Jets travel into Minnesota to play the Minnesota Vikings, who, if I remember correctly, are coming off a win against the Patriots at home, and a good win against the Patriots at home on Thanksgiving. The Vikings have been on a roll. Kirk Cousins finally played good in a primetime game, and they don't have one this week. In Minnesota, I think the Vikings are going to continue to roll. And with the Jets losing, you now move to 7-5 if you're the Jets. It definitely gets interesting there, especially if the Chargers win this week. It gets really interesting there. I don't believe anybody big is out for Minnesota this week. So Minnesota seems to be for the most part fully healthy. They're a team that really has been moving and has been playing very well. They're on a very good roll right now, so I'm definitely going to take Minnesota in this game. The next game for Week 13, the Steelers at the Falcons. Not a very interesting one. I feel like I've talked about the Falcons a lot on this show. this year. I feel like a lot of their games have been close and exciting, and this could be another one that's definitely close and exciting, even though it has no impact on the playoffs and on the postseason. Maybe it does for the Falcons actually, because of how close that division is. But the Steelers have been playing not terribly. They beat the Colts last week in a very, very boring Monday night football game that I sat there and watched. Kenny Pickett seems to finally figured out that turning the ball over isn't good. So that seems to help the Steelers a lot. And their offense and their defense now with TJ Watt back has definitely started to get rolling and get going. Even though they're going into Atlanta, I'm gonna be honest, Atlanta, even though they've been sneaky good this year, I don't see this actually being much of an issue for Pittsburgh. I think Mike Tomlin, as a coach right now, has been coaching very, very well, is very, very determined to get at least a winning record, wants that under his belt, doesn't want a losing record under his belt quite yet in his career. Obviously, that's not completely in his control, but I think going down to Atlanta, you have a very, very winnable game if you're Pittsburgh, and they're definitely going to go down and do so. Next game, again, I think this is an easy pick. You got the Broncos going into Baltimore, playing the Ravens, and the Broncos have just been an absolute, in my opinion, even though they're not the worst team in the league this year, with that being the Houston Texans, I think you could call the Broncos the laughingstock of the league this year. And I don't mean that by any offense to Broncos fans or anything about the future or anything about the Broncos front office, but just this Russell Wilson move was so laughable and turned out so bad and fell flat on its face that I don't really know where to go. Obviously, you have the report this week that he had his birthday. Sierra threw him a birthday party, and apparently half the team showed up. And from what I've heard, that's good numbers. And if people don't know why I'm talking about Russell, why the hell am I talking about Russell Wilson's birthday party? That's actually a big thing to really think about when you think about locker room energy and stuff like that. Like, if you have a dude, think about it, think about your own workplace. If you have a guy in your own workplace who's throwing a birthday party and nobody goes to his birthday party, it's because nobody likes the dude, right? So the report about Russell's birthday party is big because you see that apparently a lot of people did show up, which means he'd liked to cross the locker room, which was a big question for a lot of people so far this year with everything that's going on with Mr. Unlimited and and Broncos country. Let's ride. Him doing all the gimmicks and the high knees on the plane and being absolutely Disney Channel with his whole entire NFL career, if I do say so myself. Yeah, you could see how that gets aggravating. And then you have the clip from this past week with I can't remember who it was. I believe it was Marcel Darius screaming in his face saying, "Let's go, let's get this going." And Russ even said it in the press conference, but he sounded so corny in the press conference. It's just everything that comes out of this man's mouth sounds so corny. Just like he can't sound real. I don't get it. But with all that, you know what else doesn't sound real? The way their offense has been playing, because it's been absolutely terrible. They just can't get going. It's just their offense doesn't seem real. It seems like he thinks it's going to be a Disney movie and he's going to drop back and just throw it and it's going to work. And it's not, Russ. It's not. And it's not this week against the Ravens. Give me the Ravens this week in I think, a very easy win for the Baltimore Ravens. Now, for what I think is going to be the game of the week. Now, my friend Joe was blowing up my phone as I was talking all that crap about the Packers before, and I will continue to do so when they play the Bears this week. Now, why will I continue to do so? Because the Bears, historically, what has happened in the past couple seasons is the Packers, whether it's in Lambeau or it's in Soldier Field in Chicago, Packers should march in there and they should win. And they did earlier this year. Where the Packers are currently and Aaron Rodgers injured, I feel like the Bears have a chance to look Aaron Rodgers in the eye after he said it to their fans in Soldier Field last year. And at home, they have a chance to win. Do I think they will? Joe, calm down. I hear you from Jersey right now. No, I think the Packers will win. I think Aaron Rodgers does own the Chicago Bears. I think the Chicago Bears defense is not that great and not as good as they should be. So I think the Packers will go into Chicago and win this game. But also on that hand, I think this game is going to be very close. With Justin Fields coming back, I think looking at what Jalen Hurts did on his feet last week to the Packers, Justin Fields could prove to be very, very, very dangerous to the Packers this week. And it could be interesting. I think what the Bears could do could be very, very interesting to Green Bay. And I think it'll be close. I think both offenses kind of aren't good, but both defenses are a lot worse. So I'm going to take the Packers winning on the road in this one, but probably a close game, hardcore, going into it. I think it'll be close, but give me a Packers beating the Bears. Jags Lions. I talked a lot of heat. I talked a lot of good about the Jaguars before. For me to come out here right now and say that they're going to lose to the Lions, which is exactly what I'm going to do. I don't know. I like the Lions. I think the Lions are kind of on a roll right now. They're on the bubble for the first time since like 2013. And literally just looking that up, when I saw that on NFL.com yesterday, when I looked up the playoff standings, saw that the Lions were on the bubble. I was like, all right, well, here we go. Lions are winning this week. Go Lions. Brand new Lions. They're doing it. Dan Campbell and the Detroit Lions are biting off kneecaps up there in Detroit. They're going off. They're doing it. And I think they do it this week against the Jaguars at home, get a big win. I think they had a chance to beat the Buffalo Bills, who are arguably the best team in the league right now, last week on Thanksgiving at home. So give me the Lions beating the Jaguars, and I'll make a bold choice, and I say they do it handedly. I think they win by maybe 2 scores. Browns at Texans. Now, who doesn't want to talk about this game, and why? Why does everyone want to talk about this game? Because he finally comes back this week. The NFL script writers, this is the week they've been waiting for. It's the return of Deshaun Watson. Now, Deshaun Watson returns to Houston this week, gets his first NFL game since being suspended indefinitely for the whole massage scandal, going back to Houston where he is no longer allowed to get a massage. Comes back now, week 13, against his old team, the Houston Texans. Now, because of everything going on, are the Browns a better built team? Yes. Do the Browns have a better quarterback with Deshaun Watson? Yes. Do the Browns have a better running back with Nick Chubb? Yes. Do the Browns have better receivers? Yes. Do the Browns have a better defense than the Houston Texans? Yes. But there's something about this game. Deshaun Watson's going back into Houston with something to prove. I think he's forgetting that he's the bad guy. I'm not going to lie. I think Deshaun Watson has completely forgot that he's the bad guy. And I think the Texans are going to come out and pound the ball down their throat, control the time of possession. I think Deshaun Watson is going to be incredibly, incredibly, incredibly rusty. Hasn't played football in almost 2 years. As my surprise underdog pick, nobody sees it coming. Give me the Houston Texans getting a win at home this week, please. Please give me the Houston Texans this week. I think it's the surprise pick of the week. I think there's a lot of energy going in there with Deshaun coming back. Houston, give me Houston. Another fun game we got this week is we got the Titans at the Eagles. I could talk about this one for a while too. I think this one's going to be a great game. This one is A.J. Brown revenge game against the Titans. This is Vrabel, great coach who does great against good teams in Philly. I think this one is going to be an absolute dogfight, absolute defensive dogfight. You got Vrabel up there with one of the biggest skulls I've ever seen on a human, thinking and scheming up things that are insane. Probably the best coach, probably arguably back-to-back coach of the year. And you got Nick Sirianni and the dog mentality Eagles. It's going to be amazing. It is going to be entertaining. It is going to be an absolute dogfight. Absolute dogfight. And I'm picking the Tennessee Titans to come out on top of this dogfight. Give me the Titans winning a close one, but doing what they do against these teams, these good teams, and squeezing out a good one with Derrick Henry just absolutely outmanning everyone, being 6'5", 250 pounds and running the ball. I'd be scared. Seahawks at the Rams. The Seahawks had a bad loss last week. Rams also had a bad loss last week. I think the Seahawks have a lot more to play for, especially without Matt Stafford in this game. I think it's going to be an easy win for the Seahawks, even though they're on the road. They could still, squeeze into the playoffs, arguably win the division if the 49ers don't keep this run going. Give me the Seahawks. Dolphins, Niners. I talked about this game earlier. This one's going to be a good one and a really important one for the 49ers. Definitely give me the 49ers at home in this one, but the Dolphins will definitely keep this interesting. Tyreek Hill will have a game. They have weapons. It'll be a close game, but this 49ers defense is scary, man. It is scary. And then to round out the week, the Chiefs, Bengals, not much to talk about there. Give me the Chiefs. Chargers, Raiders. Give me the Chargers. The only thing I do want to talk about with this one is with the Chargers winning, if they do win, it definitely shakes up the Jets' playoffs hopes and what happens for the rest of the season with the Jets. They really have to start winning and have to start putting together games. Can they do so with now their third quarterback of the year? I don't know. Colts at Cowboys, I think that's an easy one. I don't even know why the Colts are on prime time anymore. I thought this game was probably going to get flexed out. It didn't. Give me the Cowboys, and with a nice, easy home win. Their defense has just been unreal. And very, very easy. And then to end off what we're talking about with the NFL, so I can talk a little bit about the other sports today, is Saints at Bucks Monday night to end Week 13. I think this one will be a good one. I think the Saints defense usually has that Bucks offense number. It'll be close. I think the Saints see that they're still possibly – I don't know if they feel like they're still in it for the division, but I think they know that they don't have their first-round pick, so there's no point to tanking. You tank and get the 2 overall. You give the 10-1 Eagles the second overall. So there's no way they're tanking. Dennis Allen seems to be confused as a head coach. Their game plan seems to be, I don't know, all over the place. But I think they can maybe squeeze out a win. I don't know if they will. So I'm going to say give me the Bucks in this one. All right. Now, for the last couple minutes here, I'm going to talk about something that happens only every 4 years. Last time we saw Kylian Mbappe and France win it all, and they seem to be the favorites to do it again. I really want to talk about the World Cup. Now, yes, might I sound like an absolute doofus right now to all you on the air and all you watching on YouTube? Absolutely. I don't watch a lot of soccer. But this is what I have gained from what I've watched, from watching a good amount. I won't say I've watched every game, but I've watched a lot of the World Cup. I will obviously start talking with our home country, the boys in blue, USA. They very much impressed me throughout their 3 games. They did a very, very good job in those 3 group games. They dominated England, even though they drew. They definitely dominated. They dominated time of possession. They looked like the better team against England, and it was very not demoralizing. What's the word? It was very up. It was very good for the morale of a very young USA team. I think some of the stars that I heard about going into this World Cup I haven't seen. I know Reyna's on the roster. He's a big goal scorer. Why we haven't seen him yet, even sub in, has been a huge question mark for the USA team. Pulisic obviously had that beautiful, beautiful goal, risked his whole body. If any man watched what happened, you sent prayers out to Christian Pulisic, and hopefully that he could have future children after that beautiful, beautiful goal that put us up against 1-0 against Iran. But what does scare me about this USA team is we saw it against Wales, and if you did watch the game and have been paying attention to this team, you saw it against Iran too. What scares me about this team is very much the end of the game and their endurance. And I don't know if it's game planning because I don't know that much about soccer to know what it is, but it seems once we hit the 80th minute, we're not playing as well. We're not as urgent. Like I said, you saw it against Wales where we made the mistake and we fouled Gareth Bale in I think it was the 86th or like the 87th minute and gave him that penalty kick that tied the game and helped Wales draw and really made it hard and made the US have to win that game against Iran. You see players like McKinney hasn't been playing as good as he should have, as I heard coming into the tournament at least, that he should be. But you see players like Sargent really stepping up, who people didn't really see playing well, and obviously Pulisic playing very, very, very well. Serginho Dest back there, right back, has been playing absolute locks. And he was a player who I remember once I started looking into it, a lot of people didn't like Serginho Dest starting on this team. I am a huge fan of Serginho Dest and how he has been playing in this tournament as a whole. And there's just a lot going on. I've been impressed with this USA team as a whole, if I'm not going to lie. And what's been happening with them and just their team, they play Netherlands tomorrow at 10 a.m. And this is a huge game. I hope everyone tunes in at 10 a.m. on Fox and really, Netherlands is a good team. They have a lot of good players. They have people like Virgil van Dijk. They, I feel like, are very energized, not making the World Cup back in 2018. But the U.S. has to be more disciplined if they want to beat a team like the Netherlands. They have to play like they did against England. They have to really possess the ball. They have to really control the time of possession, not turn the ball over, be very, very disciplined, and not give the Netherlands these chances that they're going to be able to take advantage of, because they're going to be a team who's not going to slip up like Iran did. And it's big for the U.S. they have to play their best game that they've played in the tournament so far. But with that, this tournament has been absolutely insane. Germany gets eliminated in group play for the second straight World Cup after winning back in Brazil in what was that, 2014. They've now been eliminated in the group round in back-to-back years after that stunning loss early to Japan. And then Japan was able to get that stunning victory. I believe it was yesterday over Spain. There was a small point there with point differential where Germany and Spain were both eliminated, which would have been one of the most insane scenarios to happen if both those powerhouses got eliminated. Uruguay also got eliminated this morning. South Korea moves on to the round of 16. And other two big powerhouses, Belgium, people were calling it Belgium's golden generation. Romelu Lukaku. What's the other guy's name? I can't remember right now. I can't remember his name, but a lot of good young pieces for this Belgium team. They get eliminated in the first round, and they're out in the group stage. Mexico loses in the group stage. They missed the round of 16 for the first time since 1978. So a lot of crazy stuff has already been happening here in the World Cup. Personally, if I'm going to sit here and pick, my two favorites that I've seen so far are Brazil and France. Brazil has been playing very, very, very good and have a lot of good pieces. And then France, obviously being the reigning champions with Antoine Griezmann, with Kylian Mbappe, they have a lot of good pieces there. But I think there are teams to look at who can make some noise. I think maybe I'm a little biased here, but I think the US can maybe squeeze out a game against the Netherlands and get an upset, maybe two, make some noise, maybe not make the final or like the semifinal, but maybe win this week and make the quarterfinal and really shake things up. I could see Japan doing the same thing because they have done so, beating Germany and Spain, so they could clearly shake things up. Senegal also could possibly shake things up. A lot of teams definitely on the back end of the World Cup that can shake things up. And I mean, I don't really know who I think really is gonna like. I don't know who's really been the best in my opinion in the tournament. I haven't paid that much attention. Don't know that much. Mbappe has played amazing. Obviously, we still have Argentina in it, so you have Messi. As a dream, I would love for the final to be Argentina Portugal, just to be able to see that whole Ronaldo Messi thing played out. I think every sports fan, I'm not even going to say every soccer fan, I think every sports fan dreams that. I think it'd be very interesting and very, very, very entertaining. And what has been happening so far in the World Cup has just really, really been very entertaining. And we have a huge tournament and a huge game coming up tomorrow for the US and a very entertaining tournament coming up for the rest of the World Cup and what's going on over there in Qatar. Not only that, we have obviously an exciting week 13. NFL really getting down to the nitty-gritty where everything's going to happen. Really, the playoffs and everything starts turning out to be what it's going to be. You got NBA in full swing that I haven't really been able to keep up with. Hopefully, the Knicks have been playing good. I don't know. Somebody let me know, in all honesty. I'll definitely keep up with that. You got hockey going on. Devils have been on a roll. They went on a 13-game heater and then lost, I think, about a week ago. I don't know what's really been happening there. But sports world right now is really gone a full swing. UFC is coming to a hot year's end for anybody who's really in a UFC. You know, you had Izzy lose, which was huge. So the rankings are really shooken up right now. You had Chandler Poirier, if anyone watched that. That was so entertaining. Probably the fight of the year. For you hardcore UFC fans, tomorrow we got a fight night. You got Wonderboy Stephen Thompson against Big Mouth Kevin Holland. That'll be entertaining. That'll definitely get some highlights out there on Instagram. You got coming up, you got Patty Pimblett, who I know a bunch of people love. He fights on the 10th. You got Robbie Lawler also on that card. You got Jan Blachowicz fighting to try to go fight for that belt again, also on that card, all on the 12th. And then coming up in the future of UFC in 2023, Dana said hopefully John Jones and McGregor will fight in 2023. So that's exciting. So we got a lot coming up, an exciting end of the year to sports, an exciting 2023. For my listeners here on iHeartRadio, we got one more show. Hopefully, I will be able to get a setup in my basement. So everybody subscribe to the YouTube, the log show over there on YouTube. If you want to keep it going, when I do go home for spring, I won't be on the radio. Hopefully, all that the YouTube will be able to continue and all that will get going. And that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This is the log show on WSJU Radio. I'm Logan. Everybody have a good Friday and a good weekend. Goodbye. La 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 la, yeah, yeah.